Welcome back to the forum. For those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to all of you. I don't know about the rest of you, but I loved our conversations yesterday. We talked about integration, workforce, and more. I want to thank our speakers again, and of course, our sponsors who make this event possible, especially our champion sponsors. We have another exciting lineup today. And I wanted to start by welcoming a special friend of the Policy Center, Kristen Ward from Mindful Philanthropy. Kristen leads Mindful Philanthropy's strategy, program identification and review, and knowledge management practices. She builds on her work as a social impact fellow for the Center for High Impact Philanthropy at the University of Pennsylvania. Kristen strives to apply evidence-based approaches to solve wicked problems, we love that, at the intersection of health and economic development. Kristen, welcome to you. We're so glad you're here.
Thank you, Joy. Excuse me, it's good. It's great to be here, and thank you so much for having me. As Joy mentioned, I'm Kristen Ward, and I'm Vice President of Programs and Knowledge at Mindful Philanthropy. And Mindful Philanthropy really was founded to catalyze greater impactful giving toward mental health, addiction, and well-being. And we launched the organization in early 2020, right at the very beginning of the pandemic, given the sense that there was not enough funding going toward these core challenges. And yet there was so much funding that was going toward other issues like education and religion and housing and homelessness, health issues. And yet mental health was a core and an integral part of those giving areas. So our mission is really to help funders see how mental health aligns with the work that they're already doing, rather than something that is separate and outside of that work. And we do our work in three primary ways. The first is by connecting and convening funders of all types and sizes so that they can speed up their learning journey, they can increase their knowledge and confidence and awareness of giving in the issue. We also guide funders towards strategy and smart investments that align with their priorities and values, while also thinking about where there's the greatest potential for impact. And then lastly, we also uplift proven and promising opportunities that are ready to fund now and can have outsized impact in the field. So we're really excited to be here today just to share briefly about our work to support women and girls' mental health more broadly. So earlier last year, we launched an initiative called With Her in Mind, really thinking about how funders who are already deeply committed to women and girls' issues in the United States and globally can integrate mental health into their work. And over the past year, we've been working with a number of groups of funders and individual funders to help think about how this aligns with the work that they're already doing and building out new areas for them to support. So last year, we released guidance for funders supporting setting up Girls for Success. So really thinking about kind of the early years and how to support and promote positive mental health. And over the next 4 months, we'll be releasing additional guidances, first on women's mental health in the workplace, of which maternal mental health is a core part, followed by a specific guidance next month on maternal mental health, before turning to supporting women as they age and their mental health as they age. So these conversations and these issues are so important to the work that we're doing. And it's great to be here and to be able to highlight this work and to help bring more funders to support the work of maternal mental health.
Well, thank you so much, Kristen. On behalf of all of the nonprofits in this space and the philanthropy who's been standing behind this issue as pioneers in the last 5 to 6 years, we just thank you for broadening the field in your work. And I know I'm really excited about digging into those pillars. Thank you again for your investment in your work in this space, Kristen.
Of course, and we hope it continues and only builds from here.
Very good. We are rooting for you and here to help your work, certainly. Thank you, Kristen. Like yesterday, we are going to start our day with a story. Today, we'll hear from Shanita Roach. She was born in the inner city of Chicago. She's a mother of 3, someone who experienced traumatic events in her childhood. She also experienced the death of her son and imprisonment. I have goosebumps right now. Her story is so powerful and important for all of us to hear. Through the most difficult adversity, she's turned her pain into passion, advocating for systems change for so many mothers. Just like yesterday, we want to warn you that this story can be difficult to hear. And if you need to step away, if it triggers reaction because of your own personal experiences, we encourage you to step away and do what you need to. With us is also Madonna Delfish, a senior program manager at the American Psychiatric Association's Division of Diversity and Health Equity. There, she leads the organization's maternal mental health initiatives aimed at empowering healthcare professionals to deliver culturally responsive and on par care. We're so excited to have both of them here today. And Shanita, what an honor to have you on our main stage. I'm so thrilled to introduce you. And now I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Joy, for that beautiful introduction. I always like to start out with, I want to tell you a broken story, but from a healed place. 21 years ago, yes, I was incarcerated, but I want to tell you about a beautiful son, a handsome son that I had 24 years ago. And I was a ward of the state at the time. And by me being a ward of the state, I had spent majority of my life in DCFS. For 17 years of my life, I transitioned from house to pillow to post. And I've always had a social worker. I've always had a case manager or someone of support in that way. I called the system both my mother and my father, seeing that I didn't grow up with either. However, at the age of 19, I had my first son, and his name was EJ. That's what we named him. He nicknamed him after his father. And I was in a abusive relationship with him. Also still trying to navigate my way through the system and being a wonderful mother. I had my son. He was everything I thought I needed at that moment. But what I also needed was support. So at the age of 21, we were in a apartment, and we were moving that day. And so this was a pivotal point. This was my point of transition. This was my sink or swim. I went outside. I made a phone call. I left my 21-month-old in the apartment by himself. I had the mattress propped. We were prepared to go. It was our moving day. We were transitioning. Well, while I was making a phone call, I realized that my son was still upstairs. He was woke, he was eating cereal. I thought everything was fine. I went back upstairs and I called out his name immediately because where I left him, which was in the living room eating his cereal, he wasn't there. And I said, EJ, where are you? No response. So I went to go look in the kitchen. He wasn't there. EJ, where are you? EJ didn't run from any room. So I went and looked in the bathroom. He wasn't there. So the last place was to look into our bedroom. Well, the mattress that I had propped, both mattress and box spring, were propped against the wall. However, the most devastating scene that I had ever encountered in my life was my 21-month-old being trapped underneath the box spring and the mattress. He had suffocated to death. I picked up my son and I ran out into the hallway for help. And it was neighbors down at the end of the hallway who came and they helped us. But by then, I was carrying a lifeless body. That changed the course of my life. I was a 21-year-old mother with a 21-year-old son who had passed away. And I was then therefore put in jail for 3 days, coerced, interrogated, not knowing my rights, not knowing that I had support, and the support that I knew then, which was the system, both my mother and father weren't there for me. And because of that, I was incarcerated in jail for 17 months, and I sat on first-degree murder. And during that time, I had to go through process of listening to others decide my future. Finally, my charges were reduced to involuntary manslaughter, and I served additional 2.5 years in prison. I knew right then and there that if I had another opportunity to get out into this world, what we call the world, society, that I would then therefore dedicate my life to advocacy work. It has been 21 years since the passing of my son, but it is not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about him. When I'm able to help other mothers resolve and navigate through some of this, their feelings, their disappointments, their disassociation, how do they live through the tragedy that occurred? Maternal mental health and policy and organizations and each and every individual that reaches out and teaches another person and realize that that person is a person, no matter what their story is, no matter what the headliner may be, they are individual. And so I realized that policy plays a huge part in how we help, how we support, how we create policy and legislation is through each and every individual. It is stories like mine that still live behind bars. It is stories like mine that still live in hospitals. It is stories like mine that are happening each and every day, every second that passes by. There is a mother struggling with her mental health. There is a woman screaming loudly, vocally, but also internally. I'm so glad for the Policy Center. I'm so glad for other organizations that hear stories such as mine and consider my story.
Shanita, thank you for your powerful story. And anyone who's gotten to know Shanita knows that the work that she's doing is amazing in her home state of Wisconsin and beyond. Now I'd like to turn it over to Madonna with the American Psychiatric Association to have a conversation with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Joy. Shanita, thank you so much for sharing your inspiring story and for the impactful work that you do in this space. Your resilience is truly, truly inspiring. Now, Joy mentioned this, that the power of a story and how it gives context. I would like to add that stories also puts a face to what we know is such an important issue. So I thank you so much for sharing that with us today. Now, Shanita, what struck me the most about your story was the many missed opportunities for you to receive mental health support that you needed. Despite interacting with healthcare professionals and social workers, et cetera, unfortunately, you still didn't get the care that you needed. And as we all know in this room that, it's a common experience for many birthing people of color to face higher rates of perinatal mood disorders, often higher rates of underdiagnosis, and face serious barriers to accessing equitable mental health care. Now, as someone with lived experience working on the front lines of this issue, what steps do you think could be taken to improve accessibility and cultural congruence in maternal mental health care, birthing people of color?
Wow, that's such a good question. One, we have to acknowledge that it exists. I believe for so long, we've dismissed people of color and how we've been able to express ourselves and what people don't understand, which is culturally appropriate for us. that may not be acceptable in medical terminology and deemed unexpressionable, or this person is lacking intellect in their experience, but this is truly what they're experiencing. I think that educators and medical providers need more training to understand cultural appropriation.
Right.
Then I believe that's how we can move forward in allowing their experiences and their stories to be on the forefront and be a little bit more digestible to us and in our work.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. And I think this is one of the many reasons why the American Psychiatric Association has been working really hard to provide educational content through webinars on maternal mental health that specifically focuses on issues that impact birthing people of color, to address some of these training gaps that you mentioned for clinicians and other frontline maternal mental health professionals. Our hope with this is that we contribute to improving maternal mental health equity and inform clinical decisions at the point of care. And of course, all of this information is accessible to the public for free on psychiatry.org. And my colleague, Dr. Clark, will be talking more about this later today. I have one more quick question before we go. I know you do a lot of work around addressing the criminalization and extended sentences for birthing people of color whose actions may have resulted from underdiagnosed and untreated postpartum mental illness. How do you see the criminal justice system impacting birthing people of color dealing with perinatal mental illness?
Again, I go back to one, we have to believe that it exists. I remember a time when my story was up front, it was on the news. It was a forensic psychologist who then therefore said that no mother heals in order to kill. And I believe that that should be a slogan, that no woman wakes up, looks at a beautiful child that they birthed and went through a time of maternity in order to harm that child. We have to acknowledge that mental health exists, and incarceration is not the answer nor the solution to address mental health, maternal mental health, and all of the diagnoses that exist. We also have to continue to create treatments, and we also have to create facilities. Whether that person does need to be criminalized or not, there still needs to be facilities, there still needs to be support, there still needs to be long-term care for that individual. Jailing and incarceration is not the solution. We must address this issue head on, because there's many generations to come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shanita. I really can't thank you enough for sharing your powerful story and your insights. I appreciate you for doing that. I'll now pass the virtual mic back to Joy to close us out. Thanks again.
Thank you to both of you. And, Shanita, just to say what I suspect all of us are thinking is that not only did the social system fail you in not providing supports that you needed, and not only does society fail mothers in general, right? But you needed extra help, and there was no help at your most vulnerable time. We failed you there. And then we failed you again by creating the trauma resulting from an accident. And then all that ensued that should have never happened. It's horrific. And we hear your story, and we're here to support the work that you're lifting up and identifying as critical for this community. And we're just so grateful that you're here with us, Shanita, to tell your story. I know that there are going to be people who want to do more. So thank you for planting the seed in the maternal mental health community that's here today. Thank you. And thank you to you as well, Madonna.